Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Palantir Weekly. This is episode number 112. It's going to be a solo episode here with me and Arnie today. A lot of our friends in the community cannot make it today, but we are here. What I'm going to do is in probably like 20 minutes, I'm going to put the link to the StreamYard in the chat. And anyone that wants to join, you don't even have to ask a question to us. If you just want to make a comment, any piece of conversation you have about Palantir, you'll be able to hop on the stream and talk anything you want to talk Palantir, and we'll have a nice old good community podcast for episode number 112. Arnie, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. When there's this saying, okay, there are moments where nothing happens, like last week, and moments where everything happens, boom.
Yep.
Which was this last week.
I agree. And we didn't get through the podcast last week, so we'll talk about some news we had from last week, and then we'll get into the big news of the week, which was AIPNow, which we still don't fully have a lot of information on yet. And from the people that you and I both know in the Palantir community, we're going to get more official information next week. But that'll be exciting to talk about. Let's talk about the cocaine interview. We'll call it the cocaine interview because we didn't get to talk about that. I thought it was the most epic moment in Karp's interview history. And he basically said, look, if you're short Palantir, you are high and you deserve to lose. What was your raw reaction to what he said?
I would have personally preferred seeing Karp becoming viral on something more coherent with Palantir per se, I would say. But once you go viral, you don't really complain. And I believe that speaks of the mind of Karp. So when you are this direct, it's like two options. Or you are a scammer, you want to hide something, so you have this level of fake safe boldness, or you are extremely confident what you're saying. Because what Karp did was essentially triggering short sellers into, hate us. Please, hate us. And I was actually surprised. Let me ask you, what was the incentive for him to actually go this aggressive? Because this is not just, he could have just said, they do their own thing, we do our own thing. In the end, we will see who cries. But he didn't stop there. He wanted to push them.
I don't think he had an incentive or motivation. I literally think when I was watching the interview live and he just like blurted that out, I think he was kind of just like, it was spontaneous. It was of the moment. Sarah Eisman was like, well, so how about people that are short? And he was like, oh, the shorts, dude, fuck the shorts. They're fucking high off cocaine. Now he said it very intellectually, but I don't think he went into that interview because the first 15 minutes was him very eloquently explaining the nature of AIP and why it's working, right? Mm. So it felt very random. But what did you think about like mainstream media kind of perceiving it as a batshit crazy thing as a CEO to say?
Well, it really depends. I believe these are the kind of arguments where for the kind of people Palantir wants to attract and the kind of partners they want to have close with, that can resonate well. I think also a lot of entrepreneurs really hate this idea of their stocks being shorted. Do you remember Elon Musk, how crazy he got when Bill Gates shorted Tesla? At the end of the day, Bill Gates shorting Tesla is not making Tesla bankrupt,
correct,
especially once it is profitable, and Palantir is in a similar shape. But that truly annoys you because it's like, okay, rather than supporting our mission, which is important, you prefer to just speculate on us doing badly. That really resonates badly with entrepreneurs. I'm personally more Machiavellical, so I see something like this, I felt, wait a second, isn't that Karp now wants to really trigger them in the same way he found PowerPoints as the enemy? Now now Karp wants to have also short sellers as enemy, knowing that if you just go attack us, you will become just fuel on fire.
But I don't think he's framing short sellers the same way he framed steak dinners and PowerPoints. Like steak dinners and PowerPoints, he seems like he genuinely like despises. Short sellers, I don't think he cares that much about them. Like when Edwin did the Bear Cave article, he barely mentioned it in the Bloomberg interview. I think it was just in the moment, the stock's up 400% from the lows, 50% year to date. He got a moment to gloat, but he did it in an intellectually eclectic way, which resulted in this line about cocaine. That I think a lot of us loved, but a lot of the media just like, what the fuck? They didn't get it, right? It was the Elon moment, but it was a good one.
Well, he even went to the Financial Times, and so this thing really reached a massive audience, more audience than he ever reached with like propositive.
Yes, he got people's attention. He got people's attention. Yep.
But you see, this thing divides people like Elon. Like, you like him or not, you speak of him.
Yeah,
that's really important, because once you know Karp is there, Karp is that kind of personality, at least you get intrigued and you want to know more. So, and once you go and look, okay, what's behind this crazy but crazy person, and you see, holy shish, this company is actually delivering value even to my competitor. I can't wake up. I can't miss out. Then things become weird. I wrote a post some weeks ago saying now we are in the phase where hype can become a reality, because differently from years ago, now Palantir has this structure where if there is a spike in demand, so a spike in attention, which generates a spike in demand, then now Palantir can capture it. Actually, they have a problem now that they have so much demand that given the current structure, they needed to develop a new tool, that AIPNow, to capture that by becoming faster in digesting that. So at the end of the day, this virality is positive. I can say from what I saw on X, it even triggered the short sellers who maybe were just thinking, oh, this company is probably overvalued. Even Chanos, the worst, most I can't say most important, because he completely burned out with Tesla, but he is the most famous short seller, actually criticized Palantir on my feed. I saw really a lot of hedge fund people on X really.
Wait, Chanos commented under your post?
Yeah, yes.
What did he say?
Something else. When I made that post showing, hey guys, having thinking, oh, a high PE, like 200,
I was going to talk about that one. Okay, yeah.
Is not really, like, tells you nothing, because you could have paid Apple 350 PE and yet generated 17,000 percent return. My post was, look, the PE, even if it is high, it doesn't really make any sense if you don't really understand what's behind that E. And in the case of Apple, that E was actually very compressed, because they were very profitable. Then the E declined, so the P exploded. But in reality, the business was doing okay. So
in 2004, you could have hit a 320 PE for Apple, and this is a good topic to get into. And since then, you've made 78,000%. Now, that's obviously a great return, but 320 PE was ridiculous to pay for that. And so people are saying, well, Palantir at a 260 PE, this doesn't make any sense. Your argument is that basically good companies are always overvalued on a PE basis, but eventually they grow into that PE if the E, which is the earnings, actually does well.
No, actually, it is an even more, how can I say, a priori thing. Because I received a lot of comments saying, oh, Palantir at 250 PE doesn't make any sense. And I was like, wait a second. Talking about PE for Palantir doesn't make any sense. So by definition, what you're saying, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But I could have framed that better. I understood it later that it was not clear. But at the end of the day, it triggered people. So it, as a clickbait post, it worked. But the core idea is that why Palantir? Like, what really surprised me? No, I'm joking. I was sure of that would have happened. People got triggered, but nobody asked wait a second, why that PE was actually high for Apple?
Right.
Was that because people didn't understood the potential and they went crazy, or maybe the E was just compressed, which was the case, because so that the multiple exploded? Because with Palantir, we can have the same question. The PE is a 250 or whatever. Why? Why is that? Because once you are negative on the E and then you just turn positive, is like minus something, okay? And then you have like a couple of cents of profitability. Palantir is, yes, now for some quarters profitable, but still this E just turned positive.
Mm-hmm.
So there is still, okay, a lot of stock-based compensation, but by definition is like you have a P and you have a very, very small E.
Mm-hmm. And then you get a very big P to E. Yeah.
Whoa.
That's a good point. So in general, when Apple kind of had depressed earnings in 2004, but the stock gave 78,000%, obviously Apple had to execute to make those earnings start to not be as depressed, which allowed the PE to not be as massive as it was. And same thing with Amazon in 2014, Tesla. I mean, these examples exist throughout history. Your argument is looking at PE for Palantir is irrelevant because they're just starting to enter a potentially very strong profitable phase.
I would say the prerequisite to talk about any metric is that you want to analyze a metric that it makes sense for that kind of company, for that stage of company. And if you want to draw some intuition, because that's what valuation is about, getting an intuition, there is no real science behind valuation because there are too many factors and evolving factors affecting the valuation. You want to have something that is more stable. And even Karp in an interview, he said, look, at the end of the day, our valuation is just a multiple on the revenues. Then we can talk about a multiple on gross margins. We can talk about a multiple on free cash flow, because these metrics are now stable. When Palantir was negative on the free cash flow, you can't really put a multiple on the free cash flow. When the gross margin changed too much, putting a multiple on the gross margin, you can do that, but it doesn't really help you understand the valuation because that metric is not stable yet. So talking about PE in a moment where the E is not stable yet, and there is a big question mark on, okay, how much it will be with E, because that E, it is really affected now by how much Palantir wants to spend on marketing. Let's put it this way. Palantir now sees this unprecedented demand, okay? And they can choose essentially to or push more in marketing or to hire a lot of people, essentially keeping the E compressed.
Right.
Okay. But to do that, but by doing that, they increase the revenue growth by a lot. If you look at PE, you would say, oh, the E is still compressed. Yes, but at the end of the day, you would have the sales growing a lot. So you see, the key point I'm trying to share is all valuation metrics are useful only when it makes sense for that company in that stage. And you really need to understand what's behind the multiple if you want to draw a conclusion. Otherwise, you just fool. And if you think
like Apple right now at a 30 PE with 2% year-over-year growth, now it makes sense to really compare the PE to the other Mag 7. But when in 2004, when they were just really getting started, I mean, a PE is irrelevant. And it's really funny you bring this up because all the bears that I'm seeing now, because I'm trying to see what is the bear case from a lot of the people, and we'll talk about that as well, what bear cases we're seeing on Twitter. But a lot of the bear case comes from these big Twitter accounts that think they're so elite because, you know, they have like a ton of followers in the finance space, and they're like, Palantir's PE is insane. Anyone who's buying that is stupid. But what you just said for the past 5 minutes is so simple to understand. You would think a big finance person would understand. That's a horrible way to analyze the company.
And you see, this is the fun thing of the financial world. You see, you have CFA, PhD, or whatever, who got completely tricked by simple math and a division like numerator divided by the denominator. And this is exactly what happened with Apple. You see that the spike in PE was driven by these earnings, the red area, becoming compressed. So in this moment in time, it didn't really make any sense to talk about PE. And this is the fun thing that nobody asked. So, and then people incorporated that post I shared as a comparison between Apple and Palantir, meaning that Palantir would perform 70,000%. I would say, but in my opinion, it's potentially possible. But that is not what I'm trying to share. But you see, nobody asked the question. So all the people, even Chanos, who got completely burned with Tesla, is because this rigidity mind. And he was, oh yes, but Apple had like 2x EV sales or something like that. I say, yes, but Palantir has a 35% free cash flow margin, while Apple had like a 0.1% free cash flow margin back then. So you see, this reasoning, like rigid reasoning with tech companies is what makes you completely screw up, and which was also the reason why I missed Tesla, because I was thinking too much as an analyst without really understanding the dynamics behind the numbers.
No, it's fair. That's very fair. Thank you, Psych Pilot, for being in the chat. 10 gifted memberships. Thank you so much for that, Psych Pilot. Actually, a personal friend of mine. So thank you for being here, supporting the channel, and being here on the weekly. For anyone who wants to grab those memberships, I think you just click on it, and then like you get a free $5 subscription to the channel every single month. Okay, Arnie. I want to talk about Palantir AIPNow, but before that, two things. Number one, I'm putting the StreamYard in the chat for anyone who wants to hop on and join, talk about their bear case, anything. Feel free to hop on. It's only 2 of us here this week. And we'll talk about anything with you. And Psych Pilot, thank you again for another 10 memberships. I'm gonna have to get Arnie a beer or a coffee in Italy because of this. So thank you so much for that, Psych Pilot. Really, really means a lot, and definitely supports the channel. Okay, Arnie, here's my question. And again, if anyone wants to join with StreamYard, it's in the chat. You can join even if you don't have your camera on. You can just talk Palantir. What do you think is the big bear case that the popular finance people are saying now on Twitter and YouTube about Palantir? Like obviously the street is with us. We got a $37 price target upgrade this week, but what do you think is the big argument around why it's overvalued, why, this thing is going to crash and burn? What is the sentiment out there right now for you on the bear case?
I can tell you the real bear case I see right now. I really struggle to see a real bear case right now.
Me too.
Both on...
And real quick, before you continue, you and me saying this matters. We're not saying this is delusional bulls, because we have been super bearish about the valuation for a very long time, you and me both personally. Mm-hmm. And so if we both say, hey, we don't really see a massive bear case, when we've been on the show many times saying, yo, like it's, like the valuation is getting up there, I think it actually matters when we say it.
Well, let's go back in the past. Why we were thinking, wait a second, the valuation now is a bit stretched, was because we saw the multiple exploding, the stock price exploding, but we were not really seeing evidence from the business side for this acceleration. Like we were looking, give us some signs that we need to trust that the stock price is rising, but also the dynamic behind the stock, so the business is actually set to improve, because so far we got all disappointed from Carp initially saying 30% CAGR, and then we even reached like close to 15%. Like that feels bad. Okay, so we want signs to trust that this new growth trajectory is actually true. So, but now things are really changing, and then later we will speak better about AIPNow. But I think it is fair to say, and we don't really need to speculate too much here, that now the momentum is strong. Carp initially said, we have unprecedented demand. I say, yes, but give me some signs, some real signs that is happening. And in the last 2 quarters, they proved that this unprecedented demand is real. A simple observation. If a company which was used to grow at 30% in the past before the DPO had like a spike in growth during the pandemic. The CEO tells you unprecedented demand, and the company just grows 20% or 50%. It's like, what the heck? What are you saying? So here, or you trust Carp or you don't trust Carp. But personally, right now, I don't really see very strong better arguments on the business side. You can tell whatever you want. As a short seller, they say, oh, Palantir is an AI impostor and a glorified consultancy company. Carp is essentially carping everyone, proving everyone wrong. Now, on the valuation side, things go more complicated. And I think this is the only real angle with which short sellers can really try to hit the stock.
And I think they're also trying to come at the valuation. Like we saw that random dude that blocked you over the week, comparing it to Snowflake and all that stuff. I don't think they can make that, like, forget PE. They can't make a crazy case about valuation because every analyst outside of Rishi and like maybe one other guy from Citibank, they all have us at $20 to $28. Like every single analyst. JP Morgan maybe has us at like $12. But if the street agrees on the valuation, if Snowflake fell, like the big thing for me that really made me feel comfortable about the valuation past couple of weeks, Snowflake fell almost 35% and they haven't recovered. Like Palantir has never flipped Snowflake for the past 2.5 years. Snowflake is a beloved company by Wall Street. Somehow Palantir is remaining in that $60 billion range, and Snowflake can't find liquidity to get higher into the 170s, like which is a normal level for it to be at. I don't know if you can compare Snowflake or Databricks or the growth and just be like Palantir is not like. I don't think that bear case exists anymore.
I think Snowflake was really like a glorified story. Too glorified story, which capture like Snowflake did everything perfect in a short-term time horizon. So if you if your mindset is, was Snowflake able to maximize the value it could extract from the financial markets in the last years? Everything checked.
Yep.
Was Snowflake really strategical in thinking long-term? Probably no. Also in terms of perspective. So once you do an IPO, okay, you get a lot of money, you can reinvest in the business and so on. But Snowflake essentially went from being like the perfect story to now, I can't say a broken story because it's still a good company at the end of the day. They're just having a transition with the CEO, but it's like in the most important moment in a corporate life, like Snowflake, with this AI trend emerging, you change the CEO. Yep. You show that your business was used to grow very much and now is set to grow like 20%.
It's barely growing as much as Palantir. It's at the same rate.
So come on, but Snowflake should supposed to grow 2x Palantir, no? And then
dude, it feels so good to get vindicated on this one because for 2 years, like that one was tough. Watching Snowflake be at some points, 75 billion and Palantir stuck at 34 billion. It's like, what the fuck? What is the street smoking? Like, what? Like, are we idiots or is the street idiots? It turns out the street was fucking stupid, dude. We were not idiots in this one.
And we saw that, you see, again, like even with a company, we are not following too much. We got the intuition right that Wall Street essentially was scamming all the investors, but they didn't, analysts couldn't really put a sell price on Snowflake because Snowflake paid almost all the banks for the IPO. And, I spoke with a friend who worked as an analyst for a big bank, so different from me. Like he worked for one of these big names. And he told me something very simple, but that makes you understand how things work on Wall Street. Analysts can't really have all stock prices, target prices with buy. They need to have some names on which they are hold or some sells, because you can't be credible. At the last page of the report, an analyst needs to show also the other rankings it has, and they need to have some sells. Guess what companies they put on sell on? You check, Palantir. Okay, who's not our client? what companies didn't do an IPO with us? They are good sells. And now you start seeing evidence of, oh, Rishi, oh, our friends who just put random, very like no sense price targets, even if the story was clearly improving, they couldn't really put. And the flip side of this is when Snowflake was there, they couldn't really put sell on Snowflake because if you put an IPO price, let's say at 200, and then the stock after 2 years is 150, you can put a sell rating of 100. It's like, okay, you scanned me.
Yep.
So
Yeah, you're so right, dude. I think we're seeing what incentives look like. Like when Brent Thill from Jefferies has a $13 price target and that changes in less than 2 weeks to a $20, $22 price target. I definitely think the banks, underwrote Snowflake's IPO. They made a lot of money. They bought Snowflake stock because if you're underwriting a company during IPO, you have to guarantee that you'll buy their stock. And so the bank analysts cannot say that SoFi is a sell, or at least there's a little bit of a conflict of interest. We're seeing this with SoFi right now. A lot of the banks don't want SoFi to win, and so they're downgrading the shit out of them. And it is what it is. Eventually, you have to, grow out of it. But that's what happened with Snowflake for 2 years, and now they got exposed.
Probably the best moment with SoFi will be when there will be striking evidence that regardless of the pressure the other banks put on it, they're able to emerge. Like even Palantir suffered from the same kind of dynamic. Like they were made fun from everyone, all VC. Look how on Twitter how many SaaS experts, kings of finance or kings of X, whatever. Oh, Palantir is a worthless company. Pumped by delusional pumpers. And then the day after this guy was watching was considering investing in Palantir. But this to say, you need to really understand how the financial world tries to go against you. And I love to say that I'm a former analyst who now, as a living, I'm betting against analysts by. And like I know the incentives, I know the structure, so I know where I need to look at. And for instance, something that I pay a lot of attention is okay, but what analysts are currently expecting from this company? And then I try to reason with my own head, because this relates also to the topic we had previously, or is still this topic but extended, about the short sellers, what they can say. Can you share the screen, please?
Yeah. And Rodney, I saw you were trying to join, but your devices didn't connect. So just like click it, refresh, and it should connect to your audio and camera on the phone or on the computer.
So these are the estimates in terms of revenues that analysts have for the next 3 years. And we can see that despite this growth in the momentum that the business is facing, analysts have adjusted the expectations in terms of margins. Remember, Mariana was surprised. Wait a second, this 5% additional margin, where it comes from?
Yep.
And that was AIP bootcamps. But in terms of revenues, they didn't adjust the estimates. They're still stuck to what they were expecting last year, which is a number that I feel very conservative. Like maybe we also have 2024 that doesn't move too much from here. But I personally think this 20% really, really underestimates the momentum and the strength of the company. The fact that the AI market in overall is expected to grow 23%, which means the implied expectation is Palantir to lose market share, while I expect Palantir to take a really massive market share, because we are seeing Google, Microsoft, all these companies that are supposed to compete with Palantir actually not having anything close to AAP. And now Palantir even is productizing itself, making it more efficient. So they are delivering value at scale. They're building knowledge on how to deliver alpha on scale. And there is like the perfect market conditions. Rates are set to decline. CEOs are now confident into investing in the business. Do you remember in the last year, I sometimes shared the CEO confidence level, because that is an indication of how much the CEOs are confident into investing. CEO confidence index. Let me show you.
Yeah, I heard of this as well.
Okay, so in 2022, the sorry, in 2022, you can see the confidence of CEOs was very bad.
Yep.
Okay, and casually, also the investment in software were very small. Like you don't go big into big software projects when you as a CEO are scared. You are more on, even if you should invest more, you are actually constrained. The board tells you, okay, wait a second on the spending. But when the money is free and CEOs face an environment where they are incentivized to invest, look what happened like in 2021. You see this huge spike was driven by a confidence. Okay, we are going out of the pandemic. We have still free money. So huge digital transformational project, a lot of money also to the snowflakes. Everyone was happy. And then the CEO confidence declined with higher interest rates. You have this dip, but now confidence is emerging, and I think that is a true two component. On the one side, the economic outlook looks better, and on the other side, with AI, you have a shift in perspective on what you really need to invest. And now there is evidence,
which is something that provides value, which is what Palantir is doing.
Provides hope and provides value.
Yep.
Hope, it is also important because by definition, investing as a retailer or as a CEO is hoping for a future that becomes better.
Yep.
Italy is stuck because we mentally don't feel incentivized to invest. But the beauty of Silicon Valley is we invest to actually get closer to a shinier, to a better output in the future. So this, to say, this 20% expected from analysts is, in my opinion, really underestimating the strength of the company. But on the other side, for someone who's not really deep into the company like us, they don't really have enough substance to argue why this 20% could be an underestimation. So if you look at it purely numerically, as a rigid financial analyst, you see 20% growth, the high stock-based compensation, you put maybe a higher WACC discount rate because you don't like the company, and it's overvalued. But these multiples, like a 55% free cash flow for a company growing 20%, is too much. Let's write a short article. Oh, the CEO attacks cocaine, but maybe he's the first drug addicted.
No, it's so right. It's so right. When you look at those basic, this is why you got to be deep into a company, dude. And I think this is what we're doing with this like stock community on YouTube and X is like, we could all just invest in the S&P 500 and go live our lives. The whole point is trying to find asymmetric opportunities in the market that require a differentiated point of knowledge. All of this is just knowledge, information at the end of the day that you have that someone else doesn't have. So if you know Palantir is sandbagging with this 20% year-over-year growth, or better yet, when the stock's at like $10 and you know when Karp says we don't have a pricing strategy and every Wall Street dude's like, fuck this guy, no pricing strategy, I'm never touching that. But you're a retail investor, you're like, actually, no. There's an argument here around providing value versus monetizing immediately. There's a 0 to 1 approach here. That's asymmetric. Now the stock's at 24, you're up more than double. And that's a big deal.
Think this way. When the Bear Cave wrote the article, like the arguments he brought out were actually interesting. Like if you didn't have the compounded knowledge that we are building, that report he wrote was quite convincing. Like it was true that Palantir had this consultancy component, but if you don't understand why that consultancy component is not truly a consultancy component, and why that in reality is exactly the moat. Like imagine being criticized for your key competitive advantage, which is what makes Palantir really ahead now compared with others, because they have 20 years of actually solving business problems rather than building a solutions that your salespeople just sell, that component changes completely the dynamic of the incentives, the culture, and at the end of the day, also the real customer satisfaction. Talking about which, you you could have a bear cave number 2 showing some complaints about the salespeople. Maybe, let's say, maybe they interview someone very carefully, but at the end of the day, we have feedbacks like this one that I received, was reached directly by this person who's an important Palantir Foundry user. Let me. His feedback essentially is Palantir AP is crazy. I asked him, but look, could you give me a sense if you wanted to build this stuff? And he showed me that he was building apps for any kind of vertical. So not only the core business specifically, but also things more like operationally connected, like finance. Okay, so there were a lot of applications in the finance sector. He told me, look, it wouldn't have not if without Foundry, I couldn't even start developing these apps, and I could using this system is actually
I'll read the whole quote. I'll just read it and then you can talk about it. Using the system is actually addictive. It makes me want to build and click more. The way it's been made is fun and creative, is enjoyable to stay in. It's not feeling like you are working, to be honest. It's crazy to think, but it's fun because you know how much benefit you are getting from building. It's also very satisfying when you have scheduling builds for your data pipeline, waking up every morning or every certain time period that your data sets are all up to date. And while I'm building, if I have a question or issue, I just ask AIP and it tells me the answer. It's crazy. Also, what's cool is to engage my colleagues. They tell me, oh, an app, this task I would do better with for help. So then I just set aside a few hours and build it with them. So they learn to see what goes into it. Then they own it and appreciate the more use cases to get stronger because the user is involved in the build. Thanks to the ontology and the low code, no code apps, I can pump on it. It's pretty good feedback.
Wow. And this guy is not a software engineer. I mean, this guy is a CEO. Okay. And he is having fun building applications. And the other colleagues are having fun building applications because it's like, as a business operator, you have the intuition of what works, what doesn't. And many times you think, well, look, if I had things set up in this way, my life would be 10x better. That's the problem. Between your intuition and actually having something that works, you have an IT person or more people, a department that don't really work with you. Right. So they can build a solution for you, but they don't really understand exactly your need. So it takes a lot of time, a lot of risk of actually building something that needs to be adjusted and so on. But if someone who has a deep expertise into the topic can build within hours and maybe in the future even less the applications they want, because they know they need exactly that information to deliver the best output in terms of business, then you must be excited. And then this excitement goes around also with your colleagues, and as a company you succeed because you get faster. I read an article just yesterday about Unreal and their strength in reiterating the process. Look, what makes Unreal differentiated is that they have so many different reiteration on the real world that they build things that work. I think here is a similar dynamic. Like, if you can have an intuition directly from building something fast, you see how it works in the real world, and then it doesn't work. Okay, I can rapidly change. Is no code. Boom, you try the second day. Oh, now it works. Okay, you're saving a lot of time, implicitly saving a lot of money.
Okay, we got someone here in the live stream. We'll talk about AIPNow in a bit. Sanjeev, you have an echo? No, you're good. You're live on the show.
Do I have an echo, or can you hear me?
We can hear you. Just make sure you don't have the YouTube in the background, because I heard myself. So just make sure there is.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. Perfect. Yeah, what's up, man? How are you?
Good. So first of all, I appreciate y'all and all the content you guys put out. This is routine. So good. So I just had a quick question. Uh, one, Palantir seems to consistently prove that they got the two key ingredients of elite management and product velocity. Like they're moving in the right direction and moving really fast in the right direction. One thing that seems particularly unique about them is like all of the products they release seem more eternal than products from other companies. There's no yearly iterations. It's like Gotham around 2010, it stands on its own, and a decade later, it's still relevant as its own product. And then obviously Foundry, Apollo, and AIP. Like, what is the next 5 to 15 years? It's really hard to think about because when they announce new software, it seems like such a no-brainer. Like, why did this not exist? But I'm just curious if you guys have any thoughts on what the product ecosystem might develop into over the next 10 years. And also another side question. So there seems to be a conventional understanding of like there's infrastructure companies and then there's application layer companies that build on top of these infrastructure companies. So just to like give arbitrary examples, like NVIDIA seems like an infrastructure company, right? And Facebook is a consumer application company. Palantir seems to be kind of in this amorphous, weird middle area where they're like clearly a software application, but other companies build on it also. And I know CodeStraps mentioned data apps a lot and how that could be a future full-fledged ecosystem. So if you could just talk to like where you view Palantir in that Venn diagram of application and infrastructure.
Yeah, I'll go first, and then I'll let Arnie get on this one. So to the first point around they have timeless products, this is actually a really good point. I've never thought about this, that Gotham has been around for so long, and because the sort of philosophy of the product is so unique, and then the technical execution of it has gotten better and better over the past decade, that it has been a product that has been able to stand on its own without necessarily changing the entire concept of the product. So I think AIP, given we are in the age of LLMs and AI, is going to be around. I think it's going to be around for a long time. LLM seems to be the next form of compute, not just like a chatbot. So that means you're going to need something like an AIP to power the backend infrastructure for that compute. So it seems like that's going to be another decade, multi-decade long journey, given where technology is going. So yeah, I agree with that, and I hope that the next products they build also will have sort of that timeless essence to it. In terms of this infrastructure versus application play, I agree. Most companies tend to be one or the other. Right. So NVIDIA is creating the GPUs, which is the infrastructure for Meta, the consumer application, to be able to make sure that their software is trained on those GPUs so that their AI advertising, it can increase revenue. So NVIDIA gets the GPU revenue, Meta gets the advertising revenue, and they both work in a symbiotic way. Palantir does seem to be the consumer application on top of a company's data, but because of all the governance controls, for example, of AIP, that is also the infrastructure to make sure that data is even contextual to the organization so that the software, the consumer application part of it, actually delivers business intelligence and value. So I think they're in the intersection of two, and it'll be interesting to see how they evolve over the next decade. Arnie, you can go on it as well.
This is a very interesting angle that makes me think that Palantir, like despite the comparison of the stock price that we talked about previously, but there are actually important and interesting comparisons in terms business-wise with Apple. If we think of Palantir not as an application per se, but we think more about the natural applications that are built on top of the operating system, we have a perspective that is similar to iOS of Apple. So once you join the Apple ecosystem, yes, you use iOS applications first, because that they are the ones already built in. But the goal of an operating system is to embrace other applications coming in. So
it's like Apple has Apple Music on iOS, right?
So you need to have like the core applications that are the ones that makes your phone essentially go. Like you can live potentially without all the other applications from third parties, like the very first iPhones before the App Store. But then with the App Store, the entire ecosystem becomes richer and richer. And guess what Palantir is doing? Like they're making steps for going toward this marketplace of apps, use cases, which we'll talk later. But you see how different it is from a pure application company. A pure application company doesn't have the strength to build an entire operating system
entire
around
operating
it.
system, right? Right.
But if you are the operating system, you embrace developers. Obviously, it is very hard to make it work and actually to attract people. But once, if you are able to attract developers having fun of building on top of you, and there is an entire ecosystem for which you as a developer are incentivized to actually build a new application on top of this, because this application then gets liquidity. It can be purchased very easily. Then the entire ecosystem becomes more valuable, and the operating system becomes a money printing machine. Like when we think of Apple, we think of iPhone, but the reality is that most of the net income comes from the App Store, the famous 30% fee that Apple gets paid while having essentially no cost up to now, because they've built this infrastructure to embrace developers, to help give them the tools to actually build applications on top of that. So I think Palantir is playing a similar role, but keeping the comparison with Apple, also product-wise, what we see is something similar to Apple and Tesla. If I tell you iPhone, you know that there is iPhone, and then there is a lot of updates of this iPhone. So iPhone is not a phone, is a platform of phones that gets updated. A similar playbook is done by Tesla, I think, because you have the Model S, the Model Y. So it's like every model is a specific platform, then they can update. So I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 years from now, we will still have the Model 3, just a way better version of the Model 3, which is a very different strategy, talking about smartphones, from like Xiaomi, Samsung, where they just throw models. Like they have so many models that at most you remember, oh, there's a Galaxy. Okay, on Xiaomi, they have so many models that are undifferentiated that you don't say, oh, this is the Xiaomi with this number. So while Palantir is trying to give eternity for its product, because they are a platform that can adapt. So it's like the difference between having a feature or having a platform. Once you have a platform, you can update with new features. But if you are a feature, at the next update, you could probably be removed.
Yeah, and Karp has talked a lot about this thick versus thin platform stuff. Sanjeev, I'm pretty sure you've heard him on podcasts saying this stuff, which is just like, it's true. In 2022, he kept saying, like, we're a thick platform that needs to modularize, but we're thick for a reason. We provide value, and we provide value because we're not just the application on top of your data. We are the infrastructure. Like, that's the whole concept of an ontology, to make the applications built on top of Foundry, which are hundreds of them, actually provide business intelligence and value, which is why I think CodeStrap since 2022 has always been saying the moat of Palantir is actual business value for the enterprise. Any last thoughts, Sanjeev? And then we'll move on. You might be on mute. You're not on mute on my side.
Got it. That's a really interesting perspective. Just to give a little pushback, because
You're good. No worries. You're good.
I'm not. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so just to give a little pushback, I know this is really difficult comparing these companies because every company is so N of one. But for Apple, so at first glance, I get what Arnie is saying about the software being the actual product. At first glance, consumer products seem to be very different from enterprise products. Like Apple's primary product is an incremental iteration on the iPhone, right? So that distribution to that quantity of customers seems to be much more attractive to developers. So I just think it might be a little more difficult to find wide distribution, or for the attractiveness of that distribution to be as sexy for enterprise customers.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. And Microsoft has all
But
the distribution.
that's just a thought. So who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
How it
That's a
plays
fair
out.
point. I would say consider that understanding what's Foundry already takes a lot of time. So imagine if we would have further more complexity.
Right. Right. Let me all right, Sanjeev, thank you for being on. Let's get another guy on the show. Who's this guy? Where did he come from?
Hello.
What's
Hey.
up? You are from the great state, the great gambling state.
Don't call it
this
great.
country. What's up? Why aren't you at the casino right now?
Dude, the stock market is my casino. No, I actually just wanted to come on and share with you guys and get your thoughts on something I actually read in one of my books the other day. So just a little background. I'm in a cardiovascular sonography program right now. And I was reading in my
Dude, that's
book.
so hot. The way you say that is so hot.
I know.
Cardiovascular sonography program. It's just
Honestly, I'm just a glorified photographer at the end of the day.
And you bought Palantir at $7. Like, there's no reason you're single right now. There's just no reason.
It's not okay. It's not me. It's them. No, but I was reading one of the paragraphs, and it actually had a statement about AI, and said that there's been advancements in AI that are going to help sonographers be able to diagnose pictures better, help them get the correct angles, the pressure, just to help get a better image. And I made a post the other day comparing or saying that Palantir should work with Neuralink, and I got some pushback on it. And the comparison the analogy I came up with was Palantir's digital twins and ontology is somewhat like a cadaver. So you just have an extra human body that you can work on and run different simulations on. You can experiment with it. But then I was thinking, wait, Palantir's digital twins are like having unlimited cadavers that you can run different studies on, different simulations on, and experiment with the body without actually having to use up any resources. You know,
Right.
cadavers are rare. You only have one, you can't mess up on it. And once you're done with that study, it'll never be the same. But with a digital twin, you can restart it and you can run different scenarios, different simulations. And that just got me really excited. You know, being in healthcare, there's so much money to be made. There's such an untapped market. And also another thing with healthcare is you have HIPAA laws. You know, patient data is taken extremely serious. But Palantir is the perfect company to work with such sensitive data. You know, they already have the IL-6 clearance.
Yep.
And they're already working with so many healthcare clients and in different industries within healthcare. So that just got me really excited about the potential for digital twins plus ontology. And I'm wondering if you guys think that there's a pathway for Palantir to actually help with how do I say this? With running studies like that, actually being able to fix a lot of problems that otherwise couldn't be fixed with digital twins, like running those simulations. Do you actually think that will be allowed, or do you think that
it's a good point. It's good because it's very sensitive data, and if there was any company, I would imagine it's Palantir. Arnie, you can take this one, but it's a really good point.
I haven't thought about this angle, which I find very interesting and seems very reasonable. Like, given Palantir's capabilities overall, given the track record they are having in the healthcare space, and the fact that they are going more and more vertical into actually solving healthcare problems. I was thinking before, do you remember there were a press release where Palantir was saying we help pharmaceutical companies like making the real research. So that popped to my mind when you were talking about doing real research, and there was a paper on Nature, I think, so the most respectable science publication, where Palantir was used to make the analysis. So all this to say, Palantir is becoming more and more not only the data infrastructure, but also the tool that helps the analysis, deep analysis, to be performed, things that so far you would need the very, very specialized software. So running infinite digital twins of cadavers could be a really interesting application that would really empower the research, having a very real, a grounded starting point. I was personally more thinking in terms of real-time applications. For instance, we saw the other day Sham sharing the mixed reality headset in the battlefield. And I can't help thinking, imagine having an Apple Vision Pro that gives you the same kind of intuition that we saw with Panasonic, helping the doctor, the surgeon to actually having the assistant that gives him the real-time information, or where he needs to keep cutting, where he needs to keep an eye on. So, and having a real-time
a digital twin, a sort of assistant to help you. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Davis, I think this is a really good point. If there was any company that could actually create these, what do you call them, sonographies?
Well, that's just the title, but like ultrasounds.
Ultrasounds, essentially, in a way that you can run simulations on. I think there's two components to it. Number one, it's a complex thing to be able to do in a way that actually yields the right results to drive the, I guess, like healthcare intelligence for the official. That's where Palantir could come in. And then there's a lot of integration of data involved with that. And number two is it's super confidential. So we, because of the past couple of weeks, because of earnings and because, we've had so much Palantir news, I think we have not talked about healthcare on this podcast as much as we were doing back when they got the NHS deal. But did we forget they got a fucking NHS contract for 500? We don't even talk about it anymore.
It blew over so fast. I mean, the stock even sold off after it. I was like, guys, this is huge.
we focused on it for 2 years, and
Right.
we got it. And that's where if you're invested in Palantir, you're invested in a juggernaut of a company, because for 2 years they dealt with so much politics and this and that. They get the deal, and then within a couple of weeks, there's so much news that deal is like a blip on the radar. And if that deal is a blip on the radar, and we're not even talking about it a month later,
even Titan is now okay. Fine.
Even Titan. Okay, so let's get into the last topic. And Davis, you can chime in on this one, because I'm curious on your thoughts as well.
I'll try.
We'll go with you first. AIPNow. I have gotten, Arnie and I are close to a certain Palantir source in the community that told both of us that we will get some deeper intelligence on what the hell this is probably next week by the company themselves, because they really haven't explained it fully. But from what I'm understanding, it's kind of like an AWS marketplace for AIP use cases that customers potentially could one-click download and start using on their data, and then potentially pay for right through this sort of portal or vertical. So, Davis, when you saw this, what was your initial reaction? And then we'll get to Arnie.
I saw this and I was in class, so I have not gone over it at all. I'm just excited that there's I think I saw a tweet that said it went from 8 months to 8 weeks to 8 minutes, or someone made a tweet from Palantir about that, and it just made me excited. Like, I have no deep thoughts on this. It's nice to see that the software is getting into the hands of more people at a more rapid pace. So that's basically all I have to say about that.
Okay. Arnie, what we got Coates rep in the stat. He says this is SaaS 2.0. Look, I've been told by some Palantir people, and so have you, Arnie, that this is a big deal, but they haven't fully explained it yet. But the people that I'm talking to are like, this is a really big fucking deal. So why do you think this might be a big deal?
Just real quick, I'm gonna hop off though, guys.
Okay,
thanks
no
for letting me
worries.
share my thoughts.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
See
Bye-bye.
ya.
Can you share this tweet of mine? That I think here Sham explained it better than on X. Essentially, he shared AIPNow accelerates your outcomes, enabling you to deploy workflows, solutions, applications, and more to solve complex enterprise challenges across industries and functions with a click, while Battlefield earned the capabilities to solve problems now. And they essentially built the technology to do this, configurable and reusable workflows, solutions, and applications for nearly 4 years. Why? They needed to be this fast in deploying use cases. It was borne out the immense pressure to scale the rollout of hospitals across the NHS to recover from COVID. AIP meant we could deliver value in 8 hours, no longer 8 weeks or more before. AIPNow makes that more like 8 minutes. Higher, faster, further. So this tells us, wait a second. This press release, well, not neither a press release, like this tweet they shared on X with the main account is probably the biggest development we have been seeing since AIP. Like I felt the employees internally realized how big it is, but from outside is like, okay, what is this? And what is this
Right.
actually? I think before you said a marketplace, I think it is more the enabler of the marketplace. Like my understanding, it could be absolutely wrong, and I'm really looking forward to see if I'm wrong or not. But the intuition here is when Palantir makes a product, it solves a problem they are having. So they build Gotham, okay, as a first product by relying on the idea, the intuition of PayPal detecting frauds. Okay, fine. Then they built Foundry. Why they built Foundry? Because they needed to develop new features for Gotham. Okay, fine. And then Gotham becomes more complicated, Foundry becomes more complicated, many different environments, many different applications. How can you ensure all the updates are run effectively? You develop Apollo. Okay, fine. Then you have all these systems. You want to leverage the best capacities out of your systems. You have LLMs. Okay, how can I actually use these tools in Gotham, in Apollo, in Foundry? Okay, we need to make this tool to help managing this bunch of LLM geniuses. AIP. Okay, AIP is skyrocketing in terms of demand. We are oversubscribed, unprecedented demand. Okay, we have too much demand we can't deal with. Okay, what you do? You use AIP to build a tool of tools. AIPNow. So with AIPNow, you essentially leverage what you learned from bootcamps to create archetypes of use cases and make them more easily deployable. So this seems more like a new point of access to substitute the bootcamp, because now bootcamps are like full capacity.
Right.
This way, a client that is interested in a specific use case could say, okay, I want this use case. I want it to be potentially delivered in a very small amount of time. And we see use cases from really all the industries, many different functions. I counted they were like 200 use cases. And building this is actually very difficult because you need to have, like, you can solve a use case, but making that a product is actually a very tough problem in terms of workflows that are needed and so on. So now what happens is, I'm a CFO. I need an account payable automation. Okay, let's request. And then I get contacted with Palantir employees that helps me set this up. So maybe in remote, I don't know how it works. It would be interesting to have like some feedback if someone in the audience is going through this process. Then with the help of the Palantir guy, I can set up this use case on my data. Essentially a remote bootcamp targeted toward solving a specific thing. You know what? So
Go ahead, finish.
So this AIPNow seems more like the way to substitute bootcamps when they can't deal directly with the demand. And then this is the enabler of the real marketplace, which is something they shared initially Foundry Marketplace last year, which is more the place where I see companies who develop applications on their own, like the feedback we saw previously, and they want to sell these applications to other companies that could have a similar problem. So I see this more as the entry point, and the marketplace being the end point for companies who built their own use cases and they want to sell it.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of components to this. So we have CodeStrap in the chat basically saying this will be iOS for the enterprise, which they've been talking about for a while. They had a Foundry marketplace with like a Microsoft partnership back in like January 2022. It was old stuff, and that kind of went under the radar. That wasn't real. And then the company pivoted to AIP. This seems like, as you said, it's not a marketplace yet. It's an enabler for a marketplace. So if you want to do accounts payable automation throughout your enterprise, and you can sign up to AIPNow, and you can download the automated workflows that Sean was talking about that they already created. They have 4 years of training data they've created it on based on their work with the NHS, and apply what they did for the NHS accounts payable, for example, to your specific enterprise, then it's there right on this marketplace. And what CodeStrap says here is what we need is a sign up with a credit card button on that page. That would mean if you could literally sign up, you could pay whatever amount they're charging, or you could pay as you go based on using it. And Palantir lets you literally download a workflow, which I don't know exactly how it would work because I think you kind of need Foundry. There's a lot of different components to it, but you could get set up immediately. This would be the conclusion to the modularization thesis Karp laid out back in 2022. Because we would see a real product that is enabling modular applications that result in revenue. And it would be the beginning of Palantir's attempt to really penetrate SMB. Because we know there's companies that are doing a couple $1 million a year in revenue that could probably afford $10,000 a month, which is revenue for Palantir, right? There's no reason they shouldn't get that money, but they just don't have the applications ready for them. And this might end up being that platform.
Let me ask you 2 questions. First one, why do you think so far Palantir has not focused on the small, medium enterprises?
Why do I think Palantir is not focused on small, medium enterprises? I think there's 2 reasons. Their product offering is so thick that a company doing a couple million in revenue probably wouldn't be able to benefit from the full suite of products. And number 2, they are used to locking in big deals and then giving you the forward deployed engineers to completely transform your organization. And it's not worth their time from a unit economic perspective to send a forward deployed engineer to a restaurant to do this stuff.
Exactly that. So this brings us to the second question. We know that AIP has this bottleneck, and now this solution seems to be the thing that helps removing the bottleneck of AIP bootcamps.
Yep.
Okay. What prevents Palantir from making even this process more efficient?
It seems like this would be the conclusion to that, to make that process even more.
So you see, CodeStrap, since the origin of our journey, is keep saying, I would love to have Foundry with a click on the credit card. And I think his intuition is like, that is like the end game.
Right.
And I think we are getting closer and closer and closer. So what's the bottleneck here? So if with Palantir, you see, we need to think, okay, what's the bottleneck here? So with pre-AIP, the bottleneck was it takes too much time to run a pilot. Okay, but AIP bootcamps. Okay, what's the bottleneck? Bootcamps are run by people.
Right.
You are limited on the amount of talents you can acquire to if you want to keep a good culture. Okay, right. What's the bottleneck? These employees. Okay, let's automatize them and build AIPNow so that we can scale more. Okay, what's the bottleneck here? Well, you just need to click request and you would still be contacted by a Palantir employees. And then there is some manual workflow. Okay, but what happens once you do this process once, you do this process twice, you do this process 5 times, you do 10 times, 100 times, maybe, let's say 500 times. Guess what? You could have a bot that learns from this stuff.
Yep.
And how difficult it is for Palantir, who is building bot for everything, to build a bot that essentially helps a forward deployment engineer to essentially automatize all this process and making it even faster to the point where a bot is the only thing you deal with.
To be able to even get a use case in your own data. Yeah.
If I have to think of what could be next, like the end game could be like, now you click request, you get contacted. Okay, fine. Better than before. Now, the end game potentially could be, give me a sense of what you are capable of. You click, oh, I like this use case, request, and then you deal with a chatbot that is completely functional and in the power of actually closing stuff.
Maybe. Yeah, like you can literally say, hey, AIP, I have these problems. I need these workflows. I need these solutions. Type up a big paragraph, press enter. And then AIP is like, well, try out this workflow, press download, sign up. Here's a free trial for 7 days. I mean, like this could get really... this can start screaming cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching very quickly. This could put up the actual NVIDIA numbers we're looking for. Maybe not this year, because it'll take some time for this to get rolled out. But I mean, this could be what Palantir, this could be their consumer moment without going after the 8 billion human beings on the planet, but going after the 200 million small businesses on the planet.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, the bottleneck here for Palantir not going to small medium enterprises is that if you have these resources, the forward deployment engineers that are so skilled, so limited in numbers, and so valuable, actually they cost a lot, you don't want them to be deployed on a small Italian company with 10 million revenues. You want them to be on $10 billion revenues companies,
right?
Okay? But if everything is softwareized, for Palantir's perspective, it doesn't really change if a company is 10 billion, 10 million.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter because it's automatized. So I think this constellation of things happening could be really what changes the direction of the company. Can you share the screen, please? I made this tweet yesterday that I think it really encapsulates the Palantir thesis. Essentially, what we saw when the stock was depressed was, hey, wait a second, the company keeps acquiring a lot of customers, a lot of very important customers, but the stock is dropping. So that creates an opportunity. Okay, fine. Now there is this appreciation of the stock as a AA play. There is some recovery, gap profitability. Okay, fine. But what's really happening under the surface is that Palantir is really building the conditions for which you can have an explosion of client acquisition. So AIP was the first step that essentially made the acquisition curve steeper. But probably in a couple of months, we will have also a new arrow with AIPNow, making the arrow even steeper. So I really wonder if Coach Rapo want to share something. If what we saw as the bottleneck potentially being removed actually makes sense.
It's really exciting stuff. Really exciting stuff. We'll end it off. We got one more person joining the live stream here. Psych Pilot, what's up? I think he can hear us a little bit. He might.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. You're good. There's no echo on my end, so you're good.
Yeah, I was hearing Arnie talk and then talk again like 3 seconds later.
Okay, good. So you're perfect. You're perfect. What's up, man? How are you? Oh no, I hear the echo now. Dude, what's happening is you probably have YouTube on in the background. So turn off YouTube.
Turn off YouTube? All right.
Just use StreamYard. That'll be perfect.
Oh, that's way better.
There you go.
How's it going, man?
Going well. People don't know you and I have connected like early 2022. So we've been connected for a while.
No, I think it was still 21 when we were talking.
Yeah, November 2021, around that time. Yeah.
No, I think it was April 21, maybe somewhere. It was right about the time when you were starting like to get some other things off the ground.
Okay, so we've been talking for a minute. I'm happy you're on the stream today. You've been a Palantir investor since like $7-8. You've been there since the beginning. Been there through the 2022 lows and still here today. I know you have a very hefty Palantir position. What are your thoughts on basically everything over the past couple months, and then you can also speak to AIPNow and what you think is going on there.
Well, I mean, the past couple of months have sort of been like my FU to all of Wall Street, to get like feeling really validated. My mom thinks I'm a genius.
Dude, all our
good.
parents are like, well, I guess he knows how to pick stocks now. This guy's a fucking genius, right? It's
Yeah,
great.
my girlfriend's always like talking about Palantir now and shit like that. She's picking out boats.
She has to. There's no way. She has to talk about it.
But yeah, I was gonna come on the show a bunch of times earlier, but I was getting ready to leave the country, remember? And then
Yep.
when I left, like Friday nights were gonna be impossible for me the entire time I was over there, and then I came back. So it is good to drop in and say hi to you guys.
What were your thoughts on Karp's Coke comments last week as a retail investor?
Well, it's like we were saying in the chat, he didn't bring that up. She asked him about it. And she asked him about it in the context of like, you've kind of burned the shorts. You know what I mean? You've proven the shorts wrong. And Karp can't resist spiking the football. Karp is a dude that carries vendettas. That's why he won't go on Jim Cramer's show. You know what I mean? The dude does not forget a slide against him. And I think, that was just his way of saying, yeah, the shorts were wrong. You know what I mean?
What is your short?
He just did it in pure Karp style.
Yeah, 100%.
It wasn't like he got on the air and started like crybabying about shorts and stuff like that. That would be alarming, but that's not what happened.
What is your why are you invested in Palantir, and why have you stayed invested for the past 3 years?
I don't even really remember. Look, to be honest, when I first heard it, I thought it was government spy tech. And I'm kind of this one like, stay out of my business. The government should build roads, keep schools open, and leave me alone. And so for about 7 or 8 weeks after the DPO, like I didn't touch it. I had this friend of mine that was like, no, you should check it out. You should check it out. It feels cool. And I had been outside the country for like 14 years. So I had kind of missed a lot of the feel and must things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was investing, but it was much more traditional stuff. You may not know this, but like the way that I kicked off this whole portfolio was actually with Jacobs.
Oh, wow.
My dad, when he died, was almost like a vice president for Jacobs. He was over like multiple some of their biggest projects. That these are projects that are way bigger than the wastewater treatment things. These are like multi-billion-dollar like low sulfur gas terminals in Minnesota, huge coker refineries in Corpus Christi and stuff like that. So my dad had a bunch of Jacob shares that he wasn't messing with, you know what I mean? And he started letting me mess with that. And when I got back into the country, this was after he died, Jacobs was at about $85, and I just kind of liquidated and started buying stuff. And I got lucky because like during the COVID thing, I kind of doubled it, and then I kind of tripled it, and then I had a dry patch for a year, and I was telling my mom, I was like, this Palantir thing, I think it's something different, because as I started to look into it, I completely changed my mind about it. You know what I mean?
And you saw the partnership with Jacobs also, right? Which kind of
afterwards, and my mom was like, "Oh, this is like a sign from God." You know what I mean? So she got really into it, and I bought it. The first shares that I bought were like in the 22 to 25 range. I never bought a single share over $25. And it did that thing throughout 21. Like there was one point it dipped down to 19 and went back up. I eventually sold all the shares I had over $24, and I never sold any more. And then I bought it all the way down to $6 and got a little over 10,000 shares on it. And then even bought it, part of the way back up.
Right.
And then just recently, I sold the shares that I had over $23, which was only like 150 shares. So I'm still well over 10,000. And, if it's not inconceivable that I could even add at 23, 24, 25. 10,000 is a good number for me.
No,
So my long-term thing, I'm keeping 10,000 minimum. I'm keeping it for 10 years. We'll see how it plays out. But I feel somewhat vindicated in the investment. Look, you remember, like there wasn't so many, the community wasn't that big.
No.
And they were hard times because you had all of Wall Street telling you you're an idiot for doing it. You know what I mean? Just, oh, this is trash. This company's not going anywhere. Oh, they're not profitable. You know what? What do you want to wait until a time like that when everyone's scared and buy profitable companies, when that's where everyone's hiding, you know. And so I really streamed down the investments that I was making, and it got to like 5 companies, to like 4, to like 3, to like 2, to just Palantir, and it was just Palantir.
It's basically what Arnie did. Arnie did
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah, and I could feel it in my bones. I knew they were wrong.
Yeah.
Could you know, fate can shit on you, and then, you know, like they were wrong, but still end up being right eventually. But it was a risk I was willing to take, and it's done pretty well.
Imagine how funny it is. They were throwing things on us, making us feeling stupid for doing that, and now we can blame them for being stupid, not for having done it.
Yeah, and you know, it felt good too, like having people I trust. You know, like you and I would talk about it a lot, and my mom, like, no, buy more. I can feel it too. Buy more, buy more.
Wow, that's
And so
great.
That's the sign of God.
the people I trust were telling me you're making the right decision, and the people I don't know on Wall Street that I don't trust are telling me I'm an idiot, and it feels like a pretty good validation that they were all wrong.
Let me ask you the last question while we got you, and we'll end it off on this. As a retail investor, you're looking at AIPNow, CodeStrap saying iOS for the enterprise. Does that get you excited? How do you think of this new product?
CodeStrap, I think he's trying to seduce me. You know, the things he says, you know, some of the comments, he'll come out and I'll be like, oh my God. You know what I mean? Yeah, it certainly resonates. I've been following him since he first showed up, and you know, he's not the kind of guy that will just dump trash on us and like stick it through even when things aren't going. You know, if there's something that sucks, he'll say it.
He's called out Palantir many times for a lot of bullshit.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So when you look over and you see him excited, you know what I mean? You're like, yeah, this is going good. This is going good. And
Have you
it's
noticed?
cool, and it's cool to see, like, you know, finally some other people coming off the sidelines that have some clout, like Dan Ives, and you know, who was the other one?
Kathy's been more bullish. She's
Kathy.
Kathy's Kathy. I get it, but
Draco.
You know, I don't make a habit out of hating on Kathy. She does what she does. Her fun is hard to manage because she always has to be invested. She always has to buy something. Like you posted about her buying Meta the other day. That's why she buys Meta. She's seeing the market kind of topish, and so she's just going to park it in the safest place because I don't think she's allowed to even sit on cash.
Yeah,
She's not. Yeah.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Arnie? By the way, it's good to meet you, dude.
I don't remember. Great to meet you.
Dude, this entire community has just been awesome, dude. Like the fact that we've been all here to connect and talk. And look, the stock might, if we have a macro turndown, the stock might go back down. But I just think at this point, here's the last topic we'll actually end on. How crazy does it feel when it was at $6, $20 feel like a fantasy? Now, $20 is not a lot of dollars to most people. Like if you're on Wall Street, if you're an investor, if you're a retail, like $20 is like $20. It's like a lunch, right? Like it's not a big deal. But $20 to us signifies so much because we've been there from before. What do you feel about the normalization of this 22 to 25 range? That to us is crazy, but to someone who doesn't know pounds, you're like, oh, $20, whatever, I'll buy it.
So a little bit after I took off to Colombia, because that's where I spent most of last year. Like you'd get these spikes almost up to $20 and back down, and almost up to, and then, you know, this went on for months. Hey, that's better than $6. You know what I mean? But I like seeing them kind of put in this new floor in the mid 20s. That feels good. One of the reasons that I never had too much fear investing in Palantir, even when they got down to like 5 and 6, it's like some of these military contracts, you know, managing software for the nuclear arsenal and stuff like that. Even if things get really bad, they're going to have some revenue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like poof, oh, we're not making anything. That would at least like be kind of an escape hatch if all else failed. You know what I mean?
Right.
That, you know, these are important contracts. These are important institutions. The government sometimes pays late, but it always has to pay.
And these kind of contracts are so hard to get. Imagine Titan, how many years, how many phases. Once you get this contract, it is really unreasonable unless something really bad happens to you as a company that you switch provider. And
Right.
guess what? The more you have this kind of very extreme use cases, the more you are building the moat, because you are the builder of extreme use cases, and there are not many companies which have a track record of these extreme use cases. So after Titan, let's say, okay, let's see who built something that is really valuable with AI software. Sorry, AI software driven hardware. Okay, that's who actually made it. Unreal, Palantir, missing.
Right. Once you have them in like every branch of the military and in numerous, almost every government institution, like, you know, I know we all dog on the government. They're a good target for it. You know what I mean? There's plenty enough, but the tech people in the government, they're doing their homework. You know what I mean? They're buying that because it is the best thing out there, and probably paying a lot more for it than other people are bidding.
Yep.
And you know, the idea that they would lose all those contracts suddenly, just all of a sudden, because some new, our community, I think, would be able to see something like that coming from a long way. You know what I mean? From a long way. It would be like one institution is like, nope, see you later, and then maybe another one. You know.
And I think we did with the NHS. We saw what they were doing. We knew they would get that damn deal. And then they finally got it. And they're going to get Brazil and Canada one day as well, because those systems are pretty bad.
I was pretty confident they would get it. I think the UK made a mistake just dragging it along, is sort of like prolonging it. You know what I mean? They want to look like they're doing their due diligence, but all they do is give these people on the sidelines more time to chunk rocks at you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's really all they're doing. They should have just said, you know what? Like, we're not listening to these dudes. This is what we're going to do. And because look, a year before that contract was announced, the NHS knew they were going to do this deal with Palantir.
Mm-hmm.
Palantir knew it. The NHS knew it. Foxglove knew it. You know, the whole thing ended up just being a waste of time. They should have just announced it.
Yep, I agree. All right, this was great stuff. Thank you, man, for joining the show. Super, super awesome.
Yeah, you know, I always support you guys.
I forgot you sent fucking 30,000 gifted memberships. So thank you for that, man. It means the absolute world, dude. It means it's hard-earned money. I appreciate it so much, and thank you for being here.
I'm gonna be taking off to Colombia in a few weeks, but when I get over there, I might pop in do another little cameo and
okay.
We'll
be happy to have you. We'll be happy to have you. Bye. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We will see you guys. Arnie's Twitter and YouTube, or Arnie's Twitter is in the description. His Substack in the description as well. PalantirBoats.com. Make sure you follow it.
Arnie, see my pets?
Love you. All right, that's amazing. I love it.
See you later.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend. We'll see you next week. Good night.
Yo.